Welcome to our talk show Taste of the Origins that hosted by 43 Coffee and Cup. Thank you for being here. It is wonderful to be able to sit down with you where we could enjoy some specialty coffee and listen to some story that have never been shared before from some industry experts. My name is Roy. I'm from 43 Coffee, and it is a great honor to accompany you today in our gathering. Global coffee industry is currently facing with numerous challenges, not only in terms of supply and demand, but also due to far-reaching impact on the environment and farmers' communities. In this context, establishing a transparent, traceability, sustainable, fair supply chain has become the top priority for business seeking for long-term sustainable growth. This is also the reason why 43 Coffee and Cup has found the same common ground and embarked in the collaborative journey together. Many of us here may already be familiar with Cup, a specialty coffee importers based in Brooklyn, New York, with very commendable philosophy. Good coffee comes from good people. Behind the partnership decision between 43 Coffee and Cup is a convergence of shared values, transparent traceability, and ethical business practice. From ensuring that farmers understand the pricing process to providing fair compensation, Cup has pioneered the flat rate cost-plus pricing model, fostering a fair environment for the farmers. This is also one of the commitments that 43 Coffee consistently strives for, as we believe that sustainable development can only be achieved when all the components of supply chain are cared for and treated equitably. With a common vision for development, 43 Coffee and Cup are delighted to host this intimate gathering today. In our event, we will have an opportunity to dive deeper into how Cup and their partner have created a positive impact on the coffee industry, from story about supply chain, transparency, and fair pricing model for farmers to philosophy of honoring the authenticity of each coffee growing region. This will be an open discussion where everyone could join in and have a conversation about the core issues of sustainable coffee. So, our event today will be included two main activities. They are coffee cupping and talk show session. Before we move into our first main activity, I'm so thrilled to introduce to everyone here a very special guest from Cup. He is a sampling director with so many years working experience with his partner from many countries and territories. Welcome to Erinn Buhyoff from Cup. So please join with me and welcome everyone. Hello, Mr. Erinn. How you doing?
Yeah,
good.
This is Erinn Buhyoff. I'm the sampling and roast director at Cup in Brooklyn, New York. We'll learn throughout the program today a little more about what I do and kind of the work that we do at Cup. But very excited to be in such a wonderful place.
in an industry where the sustainability is become a crucial focus, the journey and philosophy of Crop to Cup have carved out on a distinctive path. From their innovation, pricing models, traceability practice, to their long-term partnership with coffee farmers, they exemplify what it means to create a fair and transparent coffee ecosystem. As a sampling director of the Crop to Cup, your roles must involve striking a delicate balance between assessing quality and fostering a sustainable supply chain. So could you please share the core criteria that you and your partner select the supplier and the coffee beans to achieve the ideal quality?
Yeah. Yes. So with regards to sustainability, and I guess specifically the question is asking how my role fits into the company, but also with regards to that idea. The way that Crop to Cup operates, it's almost sustainability is kind of built in. We have to essentially operate around being sustainable. We don't necessarily have like a option not to be. We don't try to overextend ourselves. We really, focus on long-term partnerships, and these things are really at the root of sustainability, is keeping our kind of focus and our operations realistic. And my role with roasting and sampling fits into that in a very particular way. I am kind of in this gray area between sales and sourcing, right? Myself and our director of operations, Dan, operate our quality control lab, and along with our strategic sourcing co-worker, Christopher Ferran, we have to essentially almost like invent standards, like industry standards that are acceptable for us and how we operate, because these things aren't necessarily industry-wide, because not every single importer has sustainability kind of inherent to how they operate. So with operation, whether it's like day-to-day operations with like our sample library, figuring out how to allocate sample weight and strategically use samples that we are sent that farmers and producers provide to us. They can't. A lot of farmers, especially smallholders, can't provide like even 1 kilo of sample weight. We're lucky if we get 500 grams of sample weight, and we have to find a way to assess the quality, do the necessary moisture tests on that coffee, and sample it out to potential customers, all with sometimes 200 grams of coffee. These are really almost impossible challenges that we have to kind of create new systems to be able to work with, because larger importers, especially like commercial coffee, but even like larger specialty importers, they have a required minimum sample weight. They can't work with a certain like scale at a certain like I guess small scale, because the farmers just can't meet those minimum requirements of like even just sample weight. And that's not even getting to quality. That's not even getting to the idea that some farmers don't even have a way to send samples. Their coffee has to pass through another intermediary to be consolidated with other samples and then reach to us, and that adds weeks at a time. And by the time the farmers hear back from us with our quality assessments, more often than not it's too late. We don't have necessarily an opportunity to purchase that coffee to empower that farmer in the way that we do, and kind of keep that particular lot traceable to the person who produced it, because at a certain point that farmer needs to be paid for their work, and they can't wait around for this kind of like almost insane standards with like specialty coffee that really hinders participation in the market. So our goal, and my goal in particular with sampling and quality assessment through roasting, is to find a way to work with even the smaller farmer. How do we make that work, and how can we engage in a model that will work for someone who has just garden coffee, but maybe it's exceptional. Maybe, they are at a scale that it does need to be blended with a co-op, but, we are partnered with this co-op, and we trust that they can, I guess, do this farmer justice, work with them to develop their farm. So maybe they do kind of like reach a point where they're large enough to, kind of create single producer lots. And then beyond that, quality assessment is very, the way that I roasted these samples that you tasted today, it kind of is in line with this, I guess almost, what's the word? I guess this like limit that we're exposed to in terms of sample weight, where we more often than not have one shot to taste this coffee, to assess it and get the best look at it, and we're also very restricted when it comes to time, and so we have to have a similar kind of impossible standard when it comes to sample roasting, where we have to use a minimum sample weight as to not use all of it. We have to roast it in a way that we can assess it not only from potential customers that would be preferring a light roasted coffee, or a coffee that would be more appropriate for that, but also roasters who aren't necessarily in that kind of style. So we have to find a middle ground to be able to assess a coffee. Oh, will this do well light roast? Will this do well dark roasted? Who to kind of market it to from that information. And we also have to have a very consistent standard on how we cup, the type of water we use, the amount of coffee we use, when we cup it, how much rest do we give the coffee, right? We are not in a position where we can light roast a coffee and let it open up, give it 2 weeks of rest post-roast. We have to cup it the next day. And so we have to approach that coffee in that way and make sure that we get the, even for the sake of just the farmer's feedback, to tell them our thoughts on the coffee outside of, our own ideas of how to market this coffee, how to sell this coffee. Do we even want to purchase this? We need to be able to get enough information from that cupping to give the farmer meaningful feedback, because if we tell them nothing, then nothing happens. There's no progress that is made, and the idea of working with producers and kind of like creating these multi-year partnerships is completely meaningless. We need to have that communication. It's very important to us. So that's kind of where my role fits in, is kind of between these two worlds, and at the root of that is the sustainable practice, because that's the foundation. We're kind of just building around that,
Yeah, thank you for your response. It's very impressive. So as we mentioned earlier about the transparent fairness has become the cornerstone in the specialty coffee industry. Crop to Cup, as I know that Crop to Cup has adopted a revolution pricing model to ensure the fair compensation for farmers and foster trust. So I'm just wondering, how could this models work?
Right. I think the pricing model is something that is kind of new to this year, and it is a similar kind of model that's reflected on either side of where we operate and what services we provide. So this is what we refer to as a cost plus model, which is essentially we take a price kind of standardization, and in most cases like the C market, and then we factor in very like expected and consistent prices to create an FOB price, so that we can have essentially like an algorithm that can produce a price based on known variables, right, at the time of, I guess, our engagement with the coffee, right? And those are specifically when we are purchasing this coffee, how it would be purchased, and what is the size of the lot, right? Most of the farmers that we work with, as I described in kind of like the previous question, do not and cannot wait for their samples to go through our QC lab to, even if it takes a week, right, which would be best case scenario, that we're able to get a sample sent to us from Ethiopia, processed, input, cupped in our lab, and feedback back to the farmer, right? They cannot wait that long to kind of, when the market is, up and down and very volatile, and there's so many other complex issues outside of coffee, just even like foreign exchange, even if the C market price is stable, maybe there's a financial crisis in the origin country, and the farmers need to convert a product into a currency now, right? Because they don't necessarily have access to foreign exchange tools, right? That's a whole nother very deep conversation. But this pricing model allows us to, regardless of the quality variable, right, which is something that is important but unrealistic to, give the farmer a very rapid and quick offer for this coffee. Kind of stabilizing and also other kind of like logistic costs, right? Those do vary kind of to a lesser extent, but that is a variable, but much easier to kind of predict in terms of kind of creating a flat expected cost for us. But limit the variables to, I guess, the pricing to things that we can know in that moment at origin. We know that this is this size of lot, and we know that we're early on in the harvest, maybe we're late in the harvest. This is a coffee that can be pre-booked by a customer, or this is a coffee that is just going to be a spot offer on a menu. Using that information, we can give the farmer a price right there. And it's oversimplified. It's almost oversimplified, almost to the point where it is kind of this almost like a little more thoughtful and careful way to approach coffee buying, similar to kind of like larger commodity coffee buyers, or like how coyotes approach with farmers with cash in hand. But we can do that in a much more mindful way. And it's like we're taking the advantages of having like a price right away and cash in hand that like the coyotes, and if you're not familiar with that term, those are like coffee buyers who go to the farm and essentially just buy lots, and then they'll bring them to mills for aggregation. And usually those are kind of like, especially with smaller communities, their only option to sell to. They don't have large buyers or anyone to sell to as an option. We kind of take the advantages of the coyotes of having like an immediate answer, like you can have like, this is money that we're offering to you, while also having like a almost expected cost for ourselves, so to mitigate our risk. And yeah, I think that is something that's extremely interesting, and so far has been successful this year.
Yeah. I'm not sure if you noticed at the beginning of the introduction when I introduced about the crop to cup, I gave a very bold mention about the very commendable philosophy of crop to cup. Good coffee comes from good people. And I believe that it is not just a slogan, but it is like a story. So could you tell me more about the story behind that slogan and how do you guys, your company's operations?
Yeah, I like to think about that motto like kind of from like the top down. I think about it from the in a way that it's almost restrictive. It almost kind of feels like a passing kind of like some moral judgment. Like only good coffee comes from only good people. Mm-hmm. I do not see it in that way whatsoever. I take that motto to mean more that if you are tasting a good coffee, it has come from a good person, right? It has passed through the hands of many good people, because for your coffee that you're enjoying to achieve that level of quality, every single thing had to have gone right. Every single thing had to have gone perfect. And that only happens when there's people who are involved that have that care about that product, that care about that coffee. They think it's something that's special, and yeah, that's what that means to me.
Oh yeah. So one more thing. So like working with farming communities is a mission filled with both opportunities and challenges. So could you shed light on some of the obstacles that Crop to Cup has faced in pursuing sustainability, particularly in face of like climate change, which poses a direct threat to the coffee communities?
Yeah, I think this is a good kind of time to bring up kind of the EU deforestation regulation, kind of directly relating to climate change, because obviously that regulation is I guess, the climate effect of large-scale coffee farming. And this is not just a crop to cup challenge. This is a entire global coffee community challenge. The way that this regulation going into effect starting next year has created so much market volatility, has affected the lives of farmers, has affected strategies that importers, exporters, mills, everybody has to engage with to be able to just figure out how this is all going to work. And there's the result is a huge amount of speculation, and there's kind of like this like fear dominating the market. Importers stockpiling coffee, and because nobody knows what's going to happen. And I think that the way that I guess the market reaction to the regulations is not necessarily sustainable. But the regulations themselves, they come out of necessity, right? This is kind of like a climate change reality that we live in, and there needs to be, especially like just governmental legislation, like experiments even, to see what works. There's a huge question of what kind of actual effect will the EUDR have on actual deforestation? What is the kind of like oversight body that is going to be certifying these coffees that are whether they're associated with deforestation or not. How, I guess, controllable is this? Will origins that have, I guess, maybe less regulation have the advantage here because maybe they can just get the certification and approval without, having as much kind of oversight or from, I guess, the organizing body or the certifying body. So, I mean, it's an extremely wild time. And in terms of sustainability, it's like something that needs to happen. There needs to be kind of control over how deforestation in particular is associated with coffee farming. But from, the farmer's standpoint, they really, that kind of market volatility is very unsustainable, right? They, even though the C market is very high right now, that doesn't necessarily mean that farmers are making this amount of money. Some origins are favored over others in terms of demand, right? But the whole market is up, and the whole world is using this kind of price as this, I guess, standard for prices. When, if a coffee from an origin that is not necessarily known for quality, all of a sudden has this really high kind of like base C market price, most buyers will just go somewhere else, and kind of we're falling back into that interchangeable commodity coffee world, right? Which is what we're trying to avoid. So, very, very, I mean, this is a question that is, I don't necessarily have the answers to what will happen, but it is kind of because we're living it right now, and I would just say, expect, as always, like changes in the coffee market. Expect how changes in how you consume coffee, and I think as long as roasters, customers, coffee consumers, importers, exporters down the chain are engaged with coffee in a very thoughtful and mindful way, that we'll be okay.
Climate change is something that I always think about, because sometimes I have a conversation with my customer about climate change, and I always send them a message that if you want to have better quality coffee to drink, so you should save environment. With such a strong commitment to sustainability, I believe that Crop to Cup must have a long-term vision. So, in your view, what are the key factors for coffee industry to keep a truly sustainable ecosystem, and what is the role does Crop to Cup will play in the future?
The way we view kind of successful sustainability, is, like I mentioned before, we're very kind of realistic with our growth, and we have no goals of being this kind of global coffee kind of power, right? All we are trying to do is encourage development and these kind of sustainability practices with all of our partners. So Crop to Cup has a general code of conduct that we apply to our export partners, with our producer partners, and with our roasting partners, that kind of outlines how, at different parts of the the consumer chain, we view interaction with kind of the other parts to be sustainable and something that can be long term. And the core of that is long-term partnerships. I think that is inherent to the idea of long-term partnerships, is that you can't have a short-term, long-term partnership, right? So the first and foremost, like, we approach our partners with the idea that this is going to be a multi-year partnership. If you have no interest in that, then that is not not that we can't do business, but this is what our expectation is, and this is how we operate. And you probably don't want to work with us if that's not your goal, because we're not necessarily in it to cash in and get out, right? So the second thing is investment in kind of throughout the supply chain and the value chain. We encourage that, like, our roaster partners to be engaged at origin, to be investing in the farmers that they are purchasing coffee from. We encourage them to meet and develop that relationship themselves. We don't want to be, even though we are kind of, we are an importer, we are technically like an intermediary service provider. We don't want to gatekeep our roaster partners from meeting the people that their coffee is coming from, and are engaged in that way. Because if the service we provide is just getting the coffee from, the farmer to the roaster, and we are trying to have like security in our position in that by like keeping those two separate, right? We are much more secure in that, and knowing that the logistics of doing that is something that is not necessarily easy. So, that is what we do, but we need to foster that relationship between, not only between ourselves and the producer and ourselves and the roasters, but between the two other sides of us that we work with, right? Our kind of commitment to producers hinges on the fact that we have consistent buyers for that coffee, right? And if we have a roaster that is extremely invested in a particular community that they will continue purchasing from year after year, then those are the relationships that we want to foster. And then kind of the final part of the sustainability challenges, or like going into the future, is the actual, how do I word this? I'm sorry. The idea that coffee is not something that is perfect always. It is something that is extremely susceptible to change, and I guess I'm having trouble wording this because it's sometimes difficult to describe to either the roaster or the producer, or even to ourselves, right? That sometimes there are failures, and not every single thing is a win, is a success, and those are challenges that are inherent to having long-term partnerships, because not every single thing, relationships will be rocky, whether everything is going perfectly in the actual relationship itself, like the world is happening outside of that. So being able to, find the partners who are willing to kind of stick with us in the long run, and those who are willing to, I guess if it's a bad year, to continue the work, right? Because those are the times when the work actually needs to be put in the most.
Well, thank you, Mr. Erinn. Well, actually, deep in our heart, like every people from 43 Coffee, so we feel like it is a great honor to have a collaboration with Crop to Cup. So you make us understand more about what Crop to Cup doing, and it's such a very meaningful story. And the event today is kind of like a memory between our relationship, our collaborations, and so I would like to hear more about your thinking about this collaboration and what make it become unique.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, thank you all so much. Thank you, 43. Thank you for everybody who has showed up. I hope everyone has enjoyed themselves, having a fun time. But I think that collaboration with 43, and if I can just express my my interest in how you all operate as this kind of specialty roaster in a country that has huge coffee industry, right? It's I mean, first of all, very unique position, but also Vietnam is a very unique place. It is somewhere that has a very strong domestic coffee consumption culture as well as coffee production. Not many coffee growing places in the world can say that. And those origins that do have other kind of restrictions placed upon them. For example, like Brazil, it is illegal to import foreign coffee, right? So the Brazilian coffee culture is restricted to Brazilian coffee. But Vietnam is, a unique place where things like this can exist, where we are in a coffee producing region that is huge but also growing. There are incredible things happening in Vietnam just on the production side. Having a partner here that is engaged with the coffee culture kind of on the other side of that with roasting and quality control and the actual domestic cafe experience, as well as not restricting themselves to just only dealing with Vietnam, but also the world, and showing, the domestic Vietnamese market that there is this whole other world of coffee that if Vietnam is not already there, but can, is in conversation with, right? And I think that's an incredible thing. So truly impressed with the work that you're doing here.
Well, thank you very much. I think I already say thank you to you or Crop to Cup like a million times during the talk show today, but I have to, it is such a big appreciations from us, from 43 Coffee, or from everyone's here to Crop to Cup, and thank you very much for spending your times being here with us and giving us so many valuable information. And actually, personally, I have learned a lot from you and from the story of Crop to Cup. And now I think it is a very great opportunity for everyone who's attending here. We will open the floor for everyone who wants to ask Mr. Erinn anything around the topic or anything that relates to the sustainability or transparency or any challenge that the coffee community is facing with. Is there anyone?
Cũng một thời gian và biết được là bên Rocker Cup làm liên kết với những cái nông hộ ở Ethiopia rất là nhiều, lên tới 30 nông hộ. Ở đây thì nhân biết chắc là mọi người hay nói chuyện về cà phê đến từ Ethiopia, nhưng mà chắc là rất ít người có thể đặt tin đến. Thì không biết là anh có thể chia sẻ thêm những cái tình hình thực tế và những cái khó khăn gì khi mà làm việc với lại bên nước bên bển thì thực hiện nhiều với nhà khác.
Cảm ơn Vinh. I'm translating what he's talking about. So, he was talking about the it is like specifically about Ethiopian's coffee.
because as he knew that crop to cup, and you also mentioned about that in the presentation earlier, that crop to cup working with many coffee communities, coffee farms in Ethiopia, like I think 30 communities in Ethiopia, and he's just wondering what is the challenge, what is the difficulty that Ethiopian farmers is facing with, like, you know, as I know that, you know, like about political or climate change, human resource. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Ethiopia is a very unique place. There, over the past few decades, there's been a lot of, I guess, experimental government regulation that has had very differing results. But the current state of affairs in Ethiopia, outside of the currency issues right now, the way that the domestic coffee market works in Ethiopia, in the past few years, there's been a kind of a development and a loophole that has been found where mill operators can apply for export licenses. And in the past, for coffee to be exported, it needed to go through the coffee exchange. And before that, there was very little just like infrastructure for actual sustainable export. And it essentially manifested in a similar way, just outside of like a government regulation. But as of right now, there are because of that loophole, there are new opportunities for independent kind of coffee farmers who have grown to the size that they can operate their own mill. And because they operate their own mill, they can legally apply for an export license. And all of a sudden, there is a huge opportunity for single origin, single producer Ethiopian lots that was not possible in the past. This is something that the Ethiopian coffee market is still kind of adjusting to. It's, you know, especially people like we work with cocoa export in Ethiopia primarily, but the founder of cocoa, Moada Raya, he has been working in the coffee industry for a very long time, and he is a very unique person who is kind of this, you know, industry professional, but is excited to kind of like try to adapt to these changes. Where you know, there's plenty of other people who, you know, they learned how to do it in a certain way, and they have an expectation of this is how it's done. So he has been wonderful to work with because he views these kind of market changes or these kind of like regulation changes as opportunities for things that have never happened before. So I think in Ethiopia right now, it's the story of precarity. Who knows how long this kind of like loophole will exist? Will it be something that the government views as beneficial for everybody, and they'll kind of like write it in stone? Or maybe they'll view it as a loophole and an unintentional consequence, and they'll try to correct it in some way. But the challenges that Ethiopian producers face manifest as, right now, more often than not, opportunities for interesting new things, and really, I would, you know, consider some of the best coffees in the world. There's nowhere else that you can find these kind of like flavor, quality, the variety of Ethiopian coffees. It's extremely exciting that is something that is now possible in the birthplace of coffee.
Well, thank you very much, and I think Ben is already satisfied with your answer.
yeah, it's such a, you know, like huge response about like the land of Arabica coffee, Ethiopia. Any question?
I think that there's one thing important is we are quite distant. You see there, right? We are here, very distant. Supposedly that we can come together a bit more, right? Because we want to form up a circle. And there's one important thing is when we're talking about production, right? We're talking about the currency that you're talking about the economy, you're talking about moving coffee and then it generates like capitals, like money flows. And we're talking about the currency is about enjoyment. We're talking about like we drinking a cup of coffee because we see something that touches our senses, right? And that is something of the currency of its own. And I can totally see that that currency and this currency somehow has to be able to exchange. And I wondering, like how can you set up that kind of like exchange in terms of the two different kind of currencies, and that is very important for us as like the customer. Maybe it's a bit louder, but I mean it's the same kind of like wondering because I'm working in a my industry is like advertising and communication, and we really care for not only like the money flow, but then the customer. How can they use that value? How can they use that and turn into something like real life experience, like drinking coffee every day? And I don't see that yet. I see that you're talking a bit of farmers, and how can we empathize for them if we don't have that exchange of currency, right? Because in your world you can empathize with the farmer. In our world we empathize with a good cup of coffee. So how can we have that two currency being exchanged? That is the question.
That's a really good question. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that kind of exchange will manifest through, I think, empowerment on both sides, like both ends of the supply chain. I think something that a lot of people don't think about is how often the coffee farmers actually taste their own coffee, right? As you're drinking this coffee, it is most likely that farmer did not taste that coffee at any point, does not know what that coffee tastes like. Maybe the farmer doesn't even drink coffee, and the idea that there's this actual disconnect between the experiences, whether it's like the sensory experience at the consumer end or the actual production experience at the production end, right, is something that it needs to be bridged, and there needs to be work to be done to be able to even create that bridge so that exchange can happen. That is essentially what we do. Like farmers, many farmers before working with us never got sensory feedback or quality feedback about their coffee. They just got cash in hand for their work, right? They never got feedback or someone to listen to them about what they need. Maybe they don't care about necessarily quality, but maybe they will. But once they actually get the things that they need to actually produce the coffee, and in a sustainable way, and it's the same thing on the consumer end. Many consumers do not, have no idea where the coffee comes from. They don't know what it is, even, if it's like a plant or a rock or something, like I don't know. But I think that exchange, that kind of like thinking about this kind of communication as like a currency, right, can only happen with that bridge being built. And that is something that we work on, but we are not alone in this. It's like that's what we seek out in terms of partnerships roaster, exporter, producer, people who are willing and willing to, help us build that bridge. And the end result is a very connected supply chain. Transparency is 100%. There's no questions about where the coffee came from, and there's no questions about. Similarly, we talk about transparency as, the consumer wants to know. There's a demand for where this coffee is coming from. But for the producer needs to know where that coffee is going, right? That is, as a consumer, we don't necessarily think about. We know where it's going. We don't think about where it's going because we are here. But the farmer does not know, more often than not, right? So, yeah, I think that is. I hope that was an adequate answer.
May I just have a suggestion?
Uh-huh.
The suggestion is just simply that maybe you just stand up and come here. Yeah, that is something I think is more obvious. yeah. Because I think I really want to connect with people here. We are drinking coffee every day, and we love coffee, and you love coffee too. But I feel like when I'm standing here, we are disconnected.
Oh yeah.
Yeah?
I agree. Yeah.
You're talking in your own world, and people here doing their own thing. Nobody connected to each other.
Yeah.
So I mean, like the thing is, like I love all of the people here. Some of the people are my friends. We can talk like 4 hours straight with the coffee, like on the table. So if, for example, you have your own passion and we as a coffee drinker have our own passion, how can we connect, right? And I think the first step that you make, you come here closer to this, right? I love that gesture because you show that it's not only you talk in your own word, in your own language, you come here, you connect with people. And I see that gesture is the first step. And in Vietnamese, there are song ở trong tiếng Việt mình có một cái bài hát là gì? Nếu em bước một bước thì anh sẽ bước 999 bước còn lại. Okay. So in Vietnamese, there are song like if you take your first step, I will do the 99 step, so that we can come together. So I just want to have this specific kind of like engagement. So we can definitely build the bridge, not in theory, but right now.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Maybe the price we come with to them is lower than the price they were offered. Maybe it's higher. They do not know, right? So us kind of approaching with this new pricing model allows us to take some of the risk from the farmer. And when we kind of move some of the risk from the farmer to the intermediaries, the farmer is just happier. The farmer is more willing to reinvest in their farm. The farmer is more willing to take risks in other ways, whether it's quality risk, processing, reinvestment, right? So moving kind of that risk to the intermediaries, like us and our export partners, allows the farmers to, it just gives them a little bit of breathing room. Maybe they don't want to take any more risks, right? But they want to continue what they're doing. And sometimes in bad years, that is what they have to do. They can't, unfortunately, they can't engage otherwise. The other way that the kind of pricing model, engages with risk with the intermediary aspect is breaking down our costs into expected kind of flat rate variables, or if not flat rate, scalable based on the variables that we can know immediately, which I explained as the lot size and the time of booking, right, or time of purchase. And this this also allows us to kind of just mitigate risk overall, right? Because we are kind of almost anticipating our costs which is a volatile market. We're taking on more risk in that because we don't necessarily know what's going to happen, but we are able to kind of peg I guess, costs that are less volatile to these flat rates, and that allows us to just mitigate risk overall, and that makes us a lot easier to work with exporters, with the other intermediary partners that we work with. They enjoy, I guess, working with people who, I guess, we're just a little more organized in that way. You know, we have these expected costs where we're simplifying for them, and so the complicated things can be complicated, but the pricing is not, right? And I think overall, moving the risk around is one thing, but also just being easy to work with, and also being like an importer that producers and exporters want to work with, because that is how we operate. Just through these partnerships, we have to be like a desirable partner. We have to be able to offer these services and be easy to work with, or else no one's going to want to engage with us at all, right? Are there any other questions?
So first, thank you for inviting such an event. It's the first time to join this event for me, so it's a very good experience for me. And telling the others, the question is a little bit tough, but my question is very simple. I'm from Japan. Do you have a plan to come to Japan?
Do I have a plan to come to Japan?
Yeah, do you have a business plan come to Japan? Because I think the transparency and the traceability, your business slogan and the ideal vision is good for Japan. So I think the Japanese people become good potential customer to your company. So what do you think about the Japan market?
Yeah, I mean, Japanese market is extremely interesting and very exciting as well. I think, I guess, like I explained, we don't try to grow unrealistically. You know, if there is a kind of very identifiable need in the Japanese market, then we would, you know, engage with that. But as kind of like a risky venture just to try it, you know, we don't necessarily want to overextend ourselves in that way, because that kind of pulls resources from other work that we're doing. But as kind of like I guess an example with Taylor starting Crop China, you know, we are present in the general East Asian market for importing right now. And, you know, whether our engagement in the Japanese market comes from, you know, Crop China's, or the China office kind of trying to engage in the Japanese market, I think that would probably be the most realistic way that would manifest. But, you know, as of right now, they're still starting out, and they still, true to how we operate, they still need to get a foothold in the Chinese market, and you know, figure out that and become operational and sustainable in the Chinese market before they can start expanding outwards. Because, yeah, I mean, Japan's exciting, Korea's exciting, Southeast Asia's exciting in terms of like actual domestic coffee consumption, and we would love to work in all these places, right? But we're a small team, and but yeah, I mean, I would love to visit Japan and see, you know, what that would look like, how we would operate there. But yeah, thank you so much.
Okay, I'm looking forward to enjoy your coffee in Japan too.
Yeah.
In the future. In the future, please.
Thank you so much for being here with us today once again, everyone. So it is mine and our great honor to have everyone here. So hopefully you already understand more about sustainability, transparency, and traceability in the coffee industry, and the importance of those things